The medical officer at the United States prisoner of war camp stands in the examination room, stethoscope pressed against breathing that should not exist. The sound is wrong. Wet, like paper tearing underwater. The German boy in front of him is 18 years old, 112 pounds, and has been dying for 3 days. But that is not what shocks Captain Thomas Brennan. What shocks him is what the boy whispers when asked if he is in pain. The words come out in German, barely audible. Corporal Jake Weber, the camp interpreter, leans closer to hear. Then Weber's face changes. He looks at Captain Brennan. He translates. "He wants to know if you're going to torture him now, like his instructors said you would." Captain Brennan stares at the boy, at the fear in his eyes, at the way his hands grip the edge of the examination table like a man preparing for execution, at the absolute certainty on his face that pain is coming. Brennan removes the stethoscope. He sits down, eye level with the prisoner. He speaks slowly, waiting for Weber to translate each sentence. "Son, we are not going to torture you. We are going to save you. That is what doctors do. That is what Americans do." The boy's eyes say he does not believe it. Not yet. His eyes say he has heard promises before. His eyes say he knows what happens to prisoners who trust their captors. But his eyes also say something else, something Brennan recognizes from a decade of practicing medicine. They say he wants to believe, desperately, because the alternative is death, and 18 is too young to die. This is the story of how one German boy learned what it means to be captured by Americans instead of Soviets. How a punctured lung, 38 pounds of starvation, and a Nazi propaganda education collided with something Ernst Müller never expected to find in enemy territory. Humanity. What Ernst discovered in that Missouri camp would haunt him for the rest of his life. Not because it was brutal, but because it proved everything he had been taught was a lie. November 1944. Camp Weingarten, Missouri. The war in Europe is still raging. The Allies are pushing through France. The Soviets are crushing the Eastern Front. Germany is bleeding from both sides. But here, thousands of miles from the fighting German prisoners of war arrive in waves. The transport truck pulls through the main gate on a cold Tuesday afternoon. 40 men climb down from the covered bed. Most of them are older soldiers, Wehrmacht veterans, Luftwaffe crew, men in their 30s and 40s who look exhausted but relieved. Captured means alive. Captured means out of the war. Captured means they might see their families again. One prisoner is different. He is young, thin, moving carefully like every step costs him something. The intake officer watches him climb down from the truck, watches him lean against the side panel, watches him take short, shallow breaths. The kind of breathing that means something is very wrong inside. The officer makes a note. Müller Ernst, age 18, captured northern France. And then he adds another note. Medical evaluation priority. The prisoners are lined up for processing. Standard procedure. Every new arrival must be examined for infectious disease injuries, general health status. The medical tent is a converted barracks building with basic equipment. Captain Thomas Brennan has been running medical operations at Camp Weingarten for 6 months. He has examined hundreds of German prisoners by now. Most of them follow a pattern. Tired, underfed, sometimes injured from combat or transport, but stable, treatable, manageable. Ernst Müller does not fit the pattern. The moment Brennan asks him to remove his shirt, the boy winces. His hand goes to his ribs. He grips the exam table edge. Brennan watches the way he breathes, short and shallow, each inhale calculated, each exhale controlled. Like breathing is a risk he has to manage constantly. That is the first warning sign. Brennan places the stethoscope on Ernst's chest, left side first. The lung sounds normal, clear airflow, regular rhythm. Then he moves the stethoscope to the right side. The sound changes. It crackles, wet, wrong. He moves the stethoscope lower. The crackling gets worse. "Take a deep breath for me," Weber translates. Ernst tries. Halfway through the inhale, his face goes white. He stops. His hand moves to his ribs again. Involuntary, protective. Brennan asks when the injury happened. Ernst does not answer. Either he does not understand the English, or he is too exhausted to respond. Brennan switches to his basic German. Rough, but functional. He learned it from his grandmother, who immigrated from Bavaria in the previous century. Wann ist das passiert? Ernst says one word, just one, but it tells Brennan everything he needs to know. Transport. The boy has been traveling with a punctured lung for at least 3 days, possibly longer, every breath pushing air and fluid into places it should not be, every movement risking further collapse, every hour bringing him closer to suffocation from the inside. Brennan calls for his assistant, orders immediate transfer to the camp hospital. The guards are told to move carefully, no jostling, no sudden movements. Ernst is placed on a stretcher and carried across the compound. Other prisoners watch from behind the fence. Some of them recognize the look on his face. They have seen it before, in field hospitals, in transport trains, in the moments before a body gives up. But Ernst is still breathing, barely, painfully, but breathing. The question is why, and the answer when it comes will shock everyone in that hospital. The camp hospital is a converted barracks building, 10 beds, basic surgical equipment, a small staff of military physicians and nurses. Ernst is placed on a bed near the back of the room. Brennan begins the full examination. The punctured lung is the obvious problem. But Brennan learned years ago not to stop at the obvious. Medicine is about patterns, about seeing what the body is trying to say when the patient cannot speak. He checks Ernst's pulse. Fast. Over 100 beats per minute. But weak. Thready, like the heart is struggling to push blood through a system that is failing. He checks blood pressure. Low. Dangerously low for someone who is still conscious. The body should have shut down by now. Should have slipped into shock. But Ernst is awake. Alert. His eyes tracking every movement Brennan makes. Watching for the moment the doctor stops pretending and starts hurting. Temperature next. Normal. No fever. No infection. At least not yet. But that will change. Punctured lungs do not stay clean. Bacteria finds its way in. Sepsis follows. Then death. Then Brennan checks the weight. He already knows it will be bad. The boy is clearly malnourished. But numbers tell a different story than visual assessment. Numbers do not lie. 5 feet 9 inches tall, 112 pounds. Brennan stares at the scale, rechecks it. The number does not change. For a young man of that height and age, healthy weight should be at least 150 pounds. Ernst is missing 38 pounds of body mass, not just fat. Fat burns first in starvation. This is muscle, bone density, organ function, the body eating itself to survive. Brennan lifts Ernst's shirt again. This time he looks more carefully. What he sees makes his jaw tighten. Scars, dozens of them. Thin white lines running horizontally across the ribs, across the shoulders, down the lower back. Some of them are old, faded, maybe a year or more. Others are fresh, still pink, still healing. The pattern is unmistakable. These are not combat wounds. These are not accidents. These are systematic beatings. Brennan asks what happened. Ernst does not answer. His eyes are fixed on the ceiling, blank, empty, like he has learned that answering questions leads to more pain. Brennan calls for Corporal Weber. The interpreter has been working with prisoners since the camp opened. He speaks 3 dialects of German. He knows how to talk to men who do not want to talk. Weber sits next to Ernst, speaks slowly, carefully, uses the northern dialect, Low German, the kind spoken in Hamburg and the coastal regions. Ernst's eyes flicker. Recognition. Weber asks again. Gentle, patient. Ernst responds. His voice is so quiet Weber has to lean in to hear. The words come slowly, reluctantly, like each one costs something to speak aloud. Weber translates for Brennan. The scars are from beatings, not during combat, not during the capture, during transport. He was held in a temporary detention camp in France, a place called Épinal. 2 months. The camp was overcrowded, undersupplied. The guards treated prisoners like cargo. Food was irregular. Discipline was violent. He tried to ask for medical attention after being struck during a punishment formation. The guards told him to shut up and keep moving. That is when his rib cracked. That is when the lung punctured. And that is when he learned that survival meant silence. Brennan writes everything down, but he knows this is not the complete picture. The punctured lung and the malnutrition are symptoms, evidence of a larger breakdown. He orders blood tests, a chest X-ray, a full physical workup. The X-ray machine at Camp Weingarten is basic, a portable unit used mostly for broken bones and shrapnel wounds, but it is enough. The image develops in the makeshift darkroom. Brennan holds it up to the light. What he sees confirms his worst fear. The right lung has collapsed by approximately 30%. There is fluid in the chest cavity, blood mixed with air, a condition called hemopneumothorax. If left untreated, the pressure will continue to build. The lung will collapse completely, the heart will be compressed, and Ernst will suffocate from the inside. Brennan has maybe 48 hours to stabilize him, maybe less. He returns to the hospital ward. Ernst is lying flat on his back, eyes still on the ceiling, still waiting for the pain to start, still convinced that American mercy is a trick, a lie designed to make him compliant before the real torture begins. Brennan pulls up a chair, sits down at eye level again, waits for Weber to join them. Ernst, do you know what the Geneva Convention is? Weber translates. Ernst shakes his head. No. It is a set of rules, international rules. They say that prisoners of war must be treated with dignity. They must be given medical care. They must be fed. They must be protected from harm. These are not suggestions. They are laws. And the United States follows these laws, not because we have to, because we choose to. Because that is what separates us from regimes that do not value human life. Ernst's face does not change. His eyes say he has heard propaganda before. His eyes say words are easy. His eyes say he will believe it when he sees it. Brennan continues. Your instructors lied to you, son. We are not going to torture you. We are not going to experiment on you. We are going to save your life. We are going to drain the fluid from your chest so you can breathe. We are going to feed you so your body can heal. We are going to give you clean clothes and a bed and work on a farm until this war ends. That is what America does with prisoners. That is what the Geneva Convention requires. And that is what I am going to do for you right now. Ernst's eyes flicker. Just for a moment. The smallest crack in the armor he has built around himself. The propaganda said Americans were monsters. The propaganda said capture meant torture. The propaganda said death was kinder than American prison camps. But the man sitting in front of him does not look like a monster. He looks like a doctor, a tired doctor, a doctor who has seen too much death and is trying very hard to prevent one more. Ernst does not believe him. Not yet. But he wants to. God, he wants to. Brennan stands, begins preparing for the procedure. Thoracentesis, a needle insertion through the rib cage into the pleural space to drain the accumulated fluid. It requires precision, steady hands, and a patient who can stay calm under pressure. Ernst is none of those things. He is terrified. Weber explains every step, translates Brennan's calm clinical descriptions into German. The needle will be long. It will be hollow. It will puncture through the chest wall between the 5th and 6th ribs. There will be local anesthetic. There will be pressure. But not the sharp pain, not the agony Ernst is expecting. Ernst nods, but his eyes are locked on the needle, on the instrument that looks like something designed to hurt, to punish, to make examples of prisoners who step out of line. Brennan positions him on his right side, marks the entry point with a pen, the spot where the needle will go, between the ribs, through muscle, through membrane, into the space where fluid is drowning the lung. He injects the local anesthetic. Ernst flinches, but does not pull away, does not fight, just grips the bed rail and closes his eyes. 30 seconds for the medication to work, 30 seconds of silence, 30 seconds where Ernst convinces himself this is the moment the pretense ends, the moment the torture begins. But it does not. Brennan inserts the needle. Slow, controlled. The moment it breaks through the pleural membrane, fluid begins to drain. Dark red blood mixed with clear fluid. It flows into a collection bottle at the side of the bed. Brennan watches the pressure. Too much drainage too quickly can cause the lung to re-expand violently and tear further. Too little drainage leaves the problem in place. He drains 120 milliliters, then stops, removes the needle, bandages the site, orders Ernst to stay flat on his back for the next 6 hours. No movement, no talking, no sitting up. Ernst obeys, because he does not have a choice, because his body is too weak to do anything else, because some part of him, some small, desperate part, is starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, this is not a trick. Over the next 2 days, Brennan monitors Ernst's breathing every 4 hours. The lung begins to re-expand, slowly, painfully, but consistently. Oxygen is delivered through a nasal tube. Intravenous fluids stabilize the blood pressure. Liquid diet to avoid stressing the digestive system. The malnutrition has weakened the stomach lining. Solid food could cause cramping, vomiting, pressure on the healing lung. Blood test results come back 48 hours later. They confirm what Brennan already suspected. Ernst is severely anemic. Red blood cell count 30% below normal. Vitamin B deficiency, vitamin C deficiency. Both explain the slow healing of the scars, the weakness in the muscles, the exhaustion that goes beyond simple fatigue. And the liver function is elevated, a sign that the body has been metabolizing its own muscle tissue for energy, breaking itself down to stay alive, eating itself from the inside. Ernst has been starving for months, and his body has been cannibalizing itself to survive. Brennan submits a full report to the camp commander, recommends extended medical observation, controlled refeeding plan, and a formal investigation into the conditions at the detention camp in Epinal, where Ernst was held. The report is filed, but no investigation is launched. There are thousands of prisoners moving through the system. Ernst is just one. The system is not designed to pause for one boy, even a boy who should be dead. But Captain Brennan does not forget. He continues to monitor Ernst personally, checking his progress every morning before making rounds, every evening before going off duty, watching the numbers slowly improve, watching the lung gradually heal, watching the body fight its way back from the edge, and slowly, over the course of 3 weeks, Ernst begins to recover. Lung capacity reaches 85%. Weight increases to 123 pounds. The scars begin to fade. Not gone, never gone, but less angry, less raw. And for the first time since his capture, Ernst begins to believe that he might actually survive this war. But belief and trust are different things. Ernst follows orders, takes his medication, eats what he is given, sleeps when told. But he does not speak unless spoken to, does not ask questions, does not make eye contact with the nurses, does not exist any more than absolutely necessary. He has learned that invisibility is survival, that silence is safety, that the less attention you draw, the longer you live. It worked in Epinal. It kept him alive through the beatings, through the starvation, through the 2 months of systematic cruelty designed to break men into obedient livestock. He does not understand yet that those rules do not apply here, that American prison camps operate under different principles, that the Geneva Convention is not propaganda, that Captain Brennan meant every word he said. He will learn, eventually, but not yet, not after only 3 weeks. On the morning of the 4th week, Brennan enters the hospital ward for the daily examination. He finds Ernst sitting on the edge of the bed, not lying down, sitting, which is progress. The lung has healed enough that he can sit without dizziness, without the feeling that gravity is pulling him into darkness. But Ernst is crying, silently, tears running down his face, not from physical pain, from something else, something deeper. Brennan stops, calls for Weber, sits down next to Ernst, waits. Finally, Ernst speaks. The words come slowly, haltingly, in German. Weber translates. "I do not understand why you are helping me." Brennan waits. Let him finish. In Epinal, asking for help meant punishment. Being sick meant being a burden. Burdens were beaten, or left to die. Why are you fixing me if I am just a prisoner? What do Americans want from me? There it is, the core belief, the programming that 2 months of brutality burned into his mind, that mercy is transactional, that kindness is manipulation, that no one helps anyone without expecting something in return. Brennan takes a breath, chooses his words carefully, waits for Weber to translate each sentence before continuing. "I am helping you because that is what doctors do. That is what humans do. Not because you are German or American, because you are a person. And people deserve to be treated with dignity. The guards in France violated the rules of war. They violated the Geneva Convention. They violated basic human decency. We will not. We do not. That is the difference between us and them. That is what makes America different. Not stronger, not richer, better. We choose to be better, even when it is hard, even when it costs us something, even when the person we are helping is technically our enemy." He pauses, lets that sink in. "You survived because you are strong, Ernst. Stronger than you know. You held on when your body was shutting down. You stayed conscious when most men would have slipped into shock. You made it across the Atlantic with a punctured lung and severe malnutrition. That takes more than luck. That takes will. And now I need you to do something harder than surviving. I need you to trust me. Just a little. Just enough to let me help you finish healing. Can you do that?" Ernst does not answer right away. He sits there, tears still on his face, wrestling with years of propaganda, 2 months of torture, a lifetime of being taught that Americans are subhuman, that surrender is cowardice, that mercy is weakness. But he is also wrestling with evidence, with the fact that his chest hurts less now than it did 3 weeks ago, with the fact that he can breathe deeper, that he is gaining weight, that nobody has beaten him, that the nurses bring him water without being asked, that Captain Brennan sits with him like an equal, not a superior, not a captor, an equal. Finally Ernst nods, just once, barely perceptible, but it is enough. Brennan stands, extends his hand. Ernst stares at it, confused, then, understanding. In Germany, you do not shake hands with prisoners. You do not treat them as equals. But this is not Germany. This is Missouri. And here, apparently, doctors shake hands with the men they save. Ernst takes the hand. The grip is weak, tentative, but it is real. Welcome to Camp Weingarten, Ernst. The real version, not the one your instructors told you about. The morning Ernst is cleared for discharge from the hospital, Captain Brennan brings breakfast himself. Not the usual liquid diet, not the thin broth and mashed potatoes Ernst has been eating for 3 weeks. Real food, American food, 4 strips of bacon, scrambled eggs, toast with butter, orange juice, coffee. Ernst stares at the tray. His hands do not move. His eyes are locked on the bacon. On the way, the grease pools at the edges. On the way, steam rises from the strips. On the smell that fills the small hospital room. That smell. Brennan watches him. Notices the way Ernst's breathing has changed. Shallow again. Not from pain, from something else. "What's wrong?" Weber translates. Ernst does not answer. His hands start to shake, then his shoulders, then his whole body. And suddenly he is crying. Not silent tears like before. Full sobbing. The kind that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere that has been locked away for years. Brennan moves quickly, sits next to him, does not touch, just sits, waits. The crying continues for almost a minute. Then Ernst speaks. German. Fast. Desperate. Weber struggles to keep up with the translation. "My sister, Liesel. She loved bacon. Sunday mornings before the war. Mother would cook it. Liesel would steal pieces from the pan. We would laugh. It was normal. It was home. Then the rations started. No meat for months. The last meal I had before conscription was soup, thin soup. And now I am here, eating bacon, American bacon. And I do not know if Liesel is alive. I do not know if she is starving. I do not know if I will ever see her again. How can I eat this when she might be hungry? How can I survive when I do not know if my family survived?" Brennan lets the silence settle. Then he speaks, slow, deliberate. "Ernst, what is your sister's name?" "Liesel. She is 14 now. She was 12 when I left. If Liesel could see you right now, what would she want? For you to starve because she might be hungry, or for you to eat? To get strong, to survive this war, to come home to her?" Ernst wipes his face, does not answer. Brennan continues. "I think she would want you to eat the bacon, son. I think she would want you to remember what normal life tastes like, so you can help rebuild it when you get home. This bacon, this breakfast, it is not just food, it is a promise. America has so much that we can give it to prisoners. Think about what that means. Think about which side is going to win this war, and think about what kind of world will exist when it is over." Ernst picks up a strip of bacon, his hand still shaking. He takes a bite. The first real meat he has tasted in over 2 years. Salt, fat, smoke. The taste floods his memory. Sunday mornings, his mother's kitchen, Liesel laughing, his father reading the newspaper. Everything that existed before the war, before the propaganda, before the uniform, before the collapse. He eats slowly, still crying, but eating. Brennan watches, says nothing, just sits there while an 18-year-old German prisoner of war eats American bacon and mourns everything he has lost. When Ernst finishes, Brennan speaks again. "That bacon is not charity. It is not propaganda. It is policy. Every prisoner in this camp gets the same food we eat, same portions, same quality, because the Geneva Convention requires it, because America chooses to follow the rules even when our enemies do not. Remember this moment, Ernst. Remember that the country your instructors called subhuman gave you bacon for breakfast while you were their prisoner. Remember it when people try to tell you lies about who we are. Ernst nods, wipes his face one more time, and for the first time since arriving at Camp Weingarten, he looks Brennan in the eye. Really looks. Not the fearful glances of a prisoner watching his captor, but eye contact between two human beings. "Thank you." The words are in English, broken, heavily accented, but English. Ernst has been learning, listening to the nurses, to the guards, to the other prisoners who speak better, preparing for whatever comes next. Brennan smiles. "You're welcome. Now get dressed. You are moving to the general population today. Barracks 14. You will work on the farm detail, plant crops, feed livestock, repair fences, physical work, but manageable. And Ernst, one more thing. You are allowed to exist here, not just survive. Exist. Talk to people, ask questions, live. Can you try to do that?" Ernst hesitates, then nods. December the 20th, 1944. Ernst walks across the compound to Barracks 14. He carries a small bag with his belongings, a change of clothes, a toothbrush, the medical records Brennan gave him, and a small piece of paper with English words written on it. Vocabulary, phrases, things the nurses taught him. Barracks 14 is a long wooden building, 20 bunks, a wood-burning stove in the center, windows that let in cold air during winter. Ernst enters. 20 pairs of eyes turn toward him, 20 German prisoners of war sizing up the new arrival. The barracks leader steps forward. Oberst Fischer, 45 years old, Wehrmacht veteran, captured in France 6 months before Ernst. He speaks with the authority of a man who commanded troops in combat, but his tone is not harsh, not cruel, just practical. "Müller, yes, I heard about you, the one who almost died, punctured lung. You look better than I expected." Ernst nods, does not know what else to do. Fischer continues. "Here are the rules. Wake at 6, roll call at 6:30, breakfast at 7, work detail from 8 until noon, lunch at 12:30, work detail from 1 until 5, dinner at 6, free time until lights out at 9. Follow the rules. Do your work. Stay out of trouble. The Americans here are fair. They do not beat us. They do not starve us. But they expect discipline. Can you handle that?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Your bunk is number 17, far corner. Put your things away. Dinner is in 2 hours." Ernst walks to his bunk, sits down, feels the mattress. It is thin, but it is clean, and it is his, not shared, not fought over, just his. The man in the next bunk looks over. He is younger, maybe 19, thin face, nervous eyes. "I am Peter, from Stuttgart. You are the one from the hospital?" "Yes." "What happened?" Ernst pauses, decides on the simple version. "My lung was punctured, in France, before I came here. The American doctor fixed it." Peter nods. "The doctor here is good. He treated me for infection when I arrived. Gave me medicine. No charge, no punishment, just medicine. It is strange, yes, to be treated well by enemies." "Yes, strange." They sit in silence. Then Peter speaks again. "There are groups here. In the camp. You should know. Some men are still loyal to the Reich. They believe Germany will win. They enforce discipline, punish anyone they think is collaborating with Americans. Others are pragmatists. They just want to survive, go home. Then there are a few who never believed in the ideology. They are quiet, careful, but they exist. You will have to choose which group you belong to." Ernst thinks about that. About Franz, the hardline Nazi, who confronted him in the library in the outline. But that has not happened yet. That comes later. Right now, Ernst just nods. I choose survival. Peter smiles slightly. Smart choice. Dinner is served in the mess hall, a large building with long tables. Guards supervise but do not hover. They stand at the edges of the room, watching but not threatening. The food is brought out in large serving dishes. Beef stew, bread, vegetables, milk, and cake. Actual cake for dessert. Ernst takes his tray, sits with Peter and 3 other men from Barracks 14. They eat in relative silence, but Ernst watches, observes. The portions are generous, more food than Wehrmacht field rations, more than what he saw in Epinal. And the guards in the corner are eating the same food, from the same kitchen, the same portions. One of the men at the table notices Ernst staring. "You are surprised by the food?" Ernst nods. "In France, the guards ate meat. We ate soup. Here, everyone eats the same." The man grunts. "Welcome to America, where even prisoners eat like humans. Do not let it fool you. They are still the enemy." Another man speaks up, older, harder face. "The enemy that feeds us 3 meals a day. The enemy that gives us medical care. The enemy that follows the Geneva Convention. Some enemy." The first man bristles. "You sound like a collaborator, Klaus." "I sound like a realist. We are alive. We are fed. We are not being worked to death. I will take that over the Eastern Front any day." The conversation ends there. But Ernst understands now. The divisions Peter mentioned, they are real, and they are dangerous. After dinner, Ernst walks around the compound during free time. The camp is large. Several barracks buildings, a mess hall, a hospital, an administration building, fences topped with wire, guard towers at the corners. But the atmosphere is not oppressive. Prisoners walk freely within the compound. Some play cards, some read, some just sit and talk. Ernst finds the library, a small room attached to the administration building, shelves of donated books, German titles, English titles, magazines, newspapers. He browses slowly, picks up a book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, in English. He opens it, reads the first page slowly, understanding maybe 1 word in 3. A voice behind him. "Learning the enemy's language." Ernst turns. A man in his early 30s. Thick build, hard eyes. This must be Franz, the antagonist from the outline. Learning to communicate. Franz steps closer. "Communicate what? How grateful you are? How much you love American food? How happy you are to be their prisoner?" Ernst keeps his voice level. "I am learning English because it is useful, because I am here, because I might be here for a long time. You should be planning escape, planning resistance, not reading their propaganda." Ernst closes the book. "I spent 2 months in a French camp where resistance meant beatings, where asking questions meant punishment. I almost died there. Here I am healing. I am eating. I am alive. If that makes me a collaborator in your eyes, so be it. I choose life over ideology." Franz's face hardens. "You are weak. I am practical." They stare at each other. Then Franz turns and walks out. Ernst exhales slowly. He has made an enemy, but he has also drawn a line, and sometimes drawing lines is the only way to survive. The weeks pass. December becomes January, 1945. Ernst works on the farm detail, feeding chickens, milking cows, planting winter vegetables in the greenhouse. The work is physical, but not brutal. The guards are relaxed. One of them, Sergeant Hayes, even teaches Ernst basic English phrases during breaks. "How do you say good morning in German?" "Guten Morgen." "Guten Morgen." "And thank you." "Danke." Hayes practices the words. Ernst practices English. A strange friendship forms. Not quite friendship, but mutual respect. Recognition that they are both men doing jobs, following orders, trying to get through the war. One afternoon in late January, the guards organize a baseball game. Americans versus prisoners. Voluntary participation. France refuses, calls it collaboration. But Peter joins, and Klaus, and eventually Ernst. Sergeant Hayes explains the rules. Pitcher throws ball, batter hits ball, run to bases, score runs, simple in theory, complicated in practice. Ernst is assigned to outfield. He stands in the cold Missouri air watching men throw and hit and run. The game makes no sense, but the laughter does. The cheering, the friendly insults shouted across the field. For an hour, the war does not exist. Just men playing a game. A ball flies toward Ernst. High arc. He tracks it, catches it. Pure instinct. The American team cheers. Nice catch, Fritz. Ernst does not know what Fritz means, but the tone is not hostile. He throws the ball back. The game continues. After the game, Hayes brings out Coca-Cola, small glass bottles, cold. Ernst takes one, tastes it, sweet, fizzy, strange. Klaus laughs. It is like drinking sugar. Hayes grins. That's America, boys. We make everything a little sweeter. Ernst drinks slowly. The carbonation burns his throat. But it is not unpleasant. Just different. Like everything else here. Different from what he expected. Different from what he was taught. Different from the propaganda that said Americans were monsters. That night, Ernst lies in his bunk. Thinks about the bacon breakfast, the baseball game, the Coca-Cola, the way Sergeant Hayes taught him English without mocking his accent, the way Captain Brennan saved his life without asking for anything in return, the way the Geneva Convention is not just words on paper, but actual policy. For the first time since his conscription, Ernst allows himself to think a dangerous thought. Maybe Germany is losing not because of military failure, but because they are on the wrong side. Maybe the propaganda was not just exaggerated, maybe it was completely backward. Maybe the subhumans are the ones who follow orders to exterminate, and the civilized ones are the ones who give prisoners bacon for breakfast. The thought terrifies him, because if it is true, then everything he believed was a lie. Every sacrifice was for nothing. Every friend who died, died for a regime that was evil from the beginning. He pushes the thought away, not ready to face it. Not yet. But it stays. In the back of his mind, growing, waiting. February 1945. Ernst wakes one morning with fever. His chest hurts. The exact spot where Brennan inserted the needle for the thoracentesis. He reports to sick call. Brennan examines him, feels the heat, sees the redness, the swelling. Infection, delayed onset, from the procedure. Ernst's stomach drops. Is it serious? It could be. If it reaches the pleural space, yes, very serious. But we caught it early. I am going to start you on sulfur drugs, antibiotics. They should clear it up. But they do not. Over the next 36 hours, the fever climbs. 102 degrees, 103. The sulfur drugs are not working. Brennan knows what he needs. Penicillin, the new wonder drug. But camp policy is clear. Penicillin is reserved for American personnel. Prisoners get sulfur drugs, adequate care, not optimal care. Brennan goes to the camp commander, Colonel Matthews, a career officer, by the book. Fair but inflexible. Sir, I need authorization for penicillin. The prisoner has a pleural infection. Sulfur drugs are not effective. Without penicillin, mortality rate is 40%. Matthews does not look up from his paperwork. Adequate care, Captain. Not optimal. That is policy. With respect, sir, the Geneva Convention requires adequate medical care if we have the means to save him and choose not to. We are violating that standard. We are providing adequate care. Sulfur drugs are adequate. Request denied. Brennan leaves, frustrated, angry, but bound by military hierarchy. That evening, something unexpected happens. Franz, the hardline Nazi, who called Ernst weak, approaches Sergeant Hayes. The doctor. He looks worried. About Müller. Hayes nods. Infection. Needs better medicine. Commander will not authorize it. Franz is quiet for a moment, then speaks. That doctor saved Müller when he should have died. That means something, even to an enemy. Can you help? Hayes studies Franz. Why do you care? I thought you hated Americans. I hate cruelty. That doctor is not cruel. He is good man. I was in France too. Different camp. I watched men die because guards did nothing. I will not watch that again. Not here. Not when it can be prevented. Hayes nods slowly. I will talk to the captain. Hayes finds Brennan, tells him about Franz's intervention, about the unexpected advocacy from a man who should be the last person to help. Brennan makes a decision, goes back to Colonel Matthews. Sir, Private Franz just advocated for American medical intervention. The same Franz who refused to play baseball because he said it was collaboration. If a hardline Nazi recognizes that our treatment of prisoners is what separates us from barbaric regimes, maybe that is worth considering. Matthews looks up, pauses, thinks. 6 doses. That is all. This does not become a pattern, Captain. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Penicillin is administered. Within 24 hours, Ernst's fever breaks. Within 48 hours, it is gone. Within 72 hours, the infection is cleared. He has survived his second brush with death in 3 months, both times saved by the same American doctor, both times because someone chose to follow the Geneva Convention even when it was not required. Ernst asks Brennan why he fought for him. Because letting you die would make me no better than the guards in Epinal. I refuse to be that man. You risked your career for an enemy soldier. I did not save an enemy, Ernst. I saved a boy. There is a difference. That night, Franz visits Ernst in the hospital. Awkward silence between them. Finally, Franz speaks. I was wrong about the Americans. Not all of them. That doctor is a good man. Ernst nods. Why did you help me? You called me weak. Because I saw men die in France. Germans doing nothing. I could not watch it happen again. Not when I could prevent it. You are still weak for reading their books, but you do not deserve to die. It is not friendship, but it is understanding. And sometimes that is enough. April 30th, 1945. The announcement comes over the camp radio during afternoon work detail. All prisoners are ordered to the main yard. Guards stand at attention. The American flag snaps in the wind above the administration building. An officer steps forward, reads from a paper. His voice carries across the silent compound. Adolf Hitler is dead. Germany is collapsing. The war in Europe will be over within days. Corporal Weber translates into German. The words hang in the air. Then the reactions begin. Some men weep. True believers. Men who gave everything to the Reich. Who watched friends die for the cause. Who cannot accept that it was all for nothing. Others cheer quietly. Relief washing over faces that have carried tension for years. The killing will stop. They will go home. Eventually, many stand in silence, processing, absorbing, trying to understand what comes next. Ernst feels his chest loosen. The tightness that has lived there since his conscription finally releases. The war is ending. Not with German victory, not with the 1,000-year Reich, but ending. And he is alive to see it. Alive because he was captured. Alive because an American doctor refused to let him die. That evening, Franz sits outside Barracks 14. head in his hands. Ernst approaches, sits next to him, says nothing, just sits. Franz speaks without looking up. Everything we fought for, it was a lie, all of it. 12 years. The 1,000-year Reich lasted 12 years, and I gave my youth to it. Silence. You were smart. You never believed. Ernst shakes his head. I believed. I stopped believing when it tried to kill me. In Epinal, when they broke my rib and told me to shut up. That is when I stopped. Franz looks at him. We survived by being captured by Americans. Do you understand what that means? The subhuman Americans treated us better than our own officers. That is what breaks me. Not the defeat. The realization that we were lied to about everything. Ernst chooses his words carefully. Then maybe the real subhumans were the ones giving the orders, not the ones following the Geneva Convention. Franz does not respond, but he does not argue. And sometimes silence is agreement. Peter joins them. Klaus follows. 4 German prisoners of war sitting in the Missouri evening, the war ending around them, the future uncertain. They will send us home eventually, Klaus says, back to what ruins occupation starvation. Peter's voice is small. My city was bombed. I do not know if my family is alive. Ernst nods. Hamburg was bombed too. I have not heard from my mother or sister in 2 years. I do not know if they survived. The shared fear binds them. They survived the war, but survival means nothing if everyone they loved is gone. Captain Brennan visits Barracks 14 that night. Unusual for a doctor to visit the barracks. He stands at the front of the room, waits for quiet, speaks through Weber. I know you are scared. The war is ending, but you do not know what comes next. Some of you will go home to ruins. Some will find your families. Some will not. I cannot promise happy endings. He pauses, lets that settle. But I can promise this. Being here in America as prisoners that saved your lives, your friends on the Eastern Front, most did not make it. You are alive because you were captured. That is not surrender. That is survival. And survival is not something to be ashamed of. Ernst understands then, really understands. The punctured lung, the starvation, the beatings in Epinal, all of it kept him away from Stalingrad, from Berlin, from the meat grinder that consumed millions. His suffering was terrible, but it was also salvation. That night, Ernst lies in his bunk, runs his hand over the scar on his chest, the mark where Brennan inserted the needle, where death was drained away and life flowed back in. He thinks about the bacon breakfast, the baseball game, the Coca-Cola, Franz's unexpected help, Brennan's refusal to let him become a statistic. He whispers in English, the language he has been learning for months. I am alive. I am allowed to be alive. And for the first time since his conscription, he believes it. The months pass slowly. May becomes summer. Summer becomes fall. Fall becomes winter again. Repatriation is a bureaucratic nightmare. Screening, zone assignment, transport logistics. Germany is divided into 4 occupation zones: American, British, French, Soviet. Prisoners must be sorted, categorized, sent to the right place. January 1946. Ernst is called for his screening interview. 3 American officers sit behind a table. An interpreter stands to the side. The questions are methodical, clinical. SS affiliation? No, sir. War crimes participation? No, sir. Nazi party member? Forced enrollment in Hitler Youth. Never party member. Combat record. Conscripted 1943. Captured France 1944 before major combat. The officers confer. Make notes. Then the lead officer speaks. You are classified as low-risk non-combatant. You will be assigned to the American occupation zone in Bavaria. Repatriation by ship. Likely departure March. Ernst nods. 2 more months. Then he can find out if his family survived. The officer continues. One more thing, Muller. We have a labor shortage in Missouri. Agricultural workers. You have done good work on the farm detail here. If you are interested, we can arrange a work visa, legal immigration. You could stay in America. The words hit Ernst like a physical blow. Stay in America. The country that saved his life, that fed him, that taught him what mercy looks like. He could build a life here, safe, far from the ruins of Germany, far from the guilt and the memories and the shattered ideology. But his family, his mother, Liesel. Sir, I have not heard from my mother and sister in over 2 years. I must know if they are alive. I must try to find them. The officer nods. Understood. The offer stands if you change your mind. Transport ships leave monthly. You are on the March convoy. Good luck, son. Ernst leaves the interview room, hands shaking. 2 months to prepare for whatever waits in Germany. March 1946. Final medical clearance with Captain Brennan. The exam is routine now. Pulse normal, blood pressure normal, weight 145 pounds, lung capacity 90%. All systems functional. Brennan signs the form. You are medically fit for travel, more than fit. You are healthy, Ernst. You did that. You fought for every breath. I just helped clear the path. Silence between them. 2 years of history, life and death and recovery, and compressed into a small room with a desk and 2 chairs. Brennan reaches into his desk, pulls out an envelope. This is for you. Copy of your medical records and a letter in English and German. It explains what happened, what you survived. If you need documentation for work or school or anything else, this proves you are healthy, and it proves someone vouched for you. Ernst opens the envelope, reads the letter. His eyes blur. Why are you doing this? Because the war is over, but your life is just beginning. You will need help. You will need proof that you are more than a former prisoner. This is that proof. And Ernst, one more thing. You were always a person. The guards in Epinal forgot that. Do not let the world make you forget it again. Promise me. Ernst nods. Cannot speak. Just nods. They shake hands. Not captor and prisoner. Not doctor and patient. Just 2 men who went through something together. Who saw each other at the worst moments and chose kindness anyway. Thank you, Captain Brennan, for everything, for my life. Live it well, son. That is all the thanks I need. Ernst boards the transport truck. 40 prisoners heading to the ship that will take them back across the Atlantic, back to Germany, back to whatever remains. He turns one last time, sees Brennan standing outside the hospital, watching the trucks leave. Ernst raises his hand, waves. Brennan waves back. The image fades as the truck rolls through the gate. The last image Ernst will ever have of Camp Weingarten, the place where he almost died, the place where he learned to live. 3 weeks at sea. The ship is crowded, but not cruel. Bunks, regular meals, medical staff on board, better conditions than the transport that brought him to America. But Ernst feels fear rising with each mile closer to Europe. Not fear of drowning, not fear of the voyage, fear of what waits at the end. Bremerhaven, Germany, April 1946. The port is damaged but functional. Repatriation processing takes hours. Temporary identification papers, release forms, instructions for registering with occupation authorities. Then freedom, official freedom. No longer a prisoner, no longer property of the United States military, just Ernst Müller, 18 years old, trying to find his way home. The train to Hamburg runs on limited schedule. The journey takes twice as long as it should. Ernst watches through the window as Germany passes by. A country he barely recognizes, cratered roads, collapsed bridges, displaced families at every station, women searching for lost sons, children begging for bread. The war may be over, but the suffering continues. Hamburg, April 1946. The firebombing had done its work. Half the city gone. Ernst walks through streets that should be familiar but are not. Landmarks erased. Entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. Only makeshift shelters and the ghosts of buildings remain. He navigates by memory, by the geography that exists only in his mind now. 3 blocks north, 2 blocks east. This is where the bakery stood. This is where the tram used to stop. This is where he walked to school every morning before the world ended. He reaches Rotherbaum district, middle-class neighborhood. Or it was. His building is gone, not damaged, erased completely, just broken bricks and twisted metal where his childhood used to be. Ernst stands in the rubble. He can see it in his mind, the kitchen table, Liesel's room, his mother's garden, all of it gone. For the first time since his capture, Ernst breaks. Not silent tears, full body sobbing. He survived Epinal, survived a punctured lung, survived starvation, survived the war. And for what? To come home to nothing. Ernst Müller. He turns, sees Frau Schmidt, a neighbor, 70 years old, thin, worn, but alive. We thought you were dead. Your mother thought you were dead. Ernst's heart stops. My mother, she is alive. Yes. And Liesel. They evacuated before the worst attacks. They are in the displaced persons camp. Ohlsdorf, north of the city. Go. They need to know you survived. Ernst runs. 8 kilometers through ruined streets. He runs until his lungs burn, until the scar tissue pulls, until he tastes blood. But he does not stop. The displaced persons camp is a sprawl of temporary barracks. Hundreds of families. The Red Cross provides food and shelter and tries to reunite families torn apart by war. Ernst goes to the registration office, gives names. The clerk checks a ledger. Barrack 7, Section B. Ernst walks to Barrack 7. His hands shake. His vision blurs. 3 years since he saw them. 3 years of not knowing. He enters the barracks, sees rows of bunks, families living in cramped spaces, and there, in the back corner, his mother hanging laundry, his sister reading on a bunk. They look older, worn by years of loss, but alive. Ernst's voice comes out as a whisper. Mutti! Margareta turns. The laundry falls from her hands. Her eyes go wide. Ernst! Liesel looks up, screams, runs. They collide. 3 people who thought they would never be together again. Hugging, crying, holding each other like if they let go, the dream will end. That evening they sit together. Margareta makes weak tea from Red Cross rations. They talk. Ernst tells them a version of the story, the sanitized version, captured in France, held in American prisoner of war camp, treated well, released after the war. He does not mention Epinal, does not mention the punctured lung, does not mention almost dying. Some stories are too heavy to share. Liesel asks the question he dreads. Were you scared? Ernst looks at his sister, 16 years old now. War aged everyone. Sometimes. But I am here now, and you are here. That is what matters. Liesel nods, accepts the answer. She has her own stories she does not tell. Ernst lies on a borrowed cot that night, stares at the ceiling of Barracks 7, thinks about Captain Brennan, about the bacon breakfast, about learning that mercy was real. He runs his hand over the scar on his chest, the reminder that every breath after November 1944 was a gift. Ernst whispers into the darkness, "I lived, Captain. I survived. I found them. Thank you." Somewhere across the Atlantic, Captain Thomas Brennan sits at his desk in Pennsylvania, writes in his journal. The entry mentions a German boy with a punctured lung who should not have survived, but did, who reminded him why mercy matters, why choosing humanity over hate is the only choice that leaves you whole. Neither man knows they will never see each other again. But the story does not end here. Ernst Müller spends the next 46 years building a life from ruins. He works as a laborer, clearing rubble, rebuilding Hamburg brick by brick. The work is hard. His damaged lung makes it harder, but it gives him purpose. In 1951, he meets Anna, a woman who survived the firebombing by hiding in a cellar for 3 days. They marry in a small ceremony, St. Michael's Church, rebuilt from ash. They understand each other, two people who carry weight they never discuss. Their son is born in 1953. They name him Thomas. Ernst never explains why he chose that name. Anna never asks. The nightmares come regularly. Ernst wakes gasping, convinced he is back in Epinal, that the rib is breaking again, that the lung is collapsing. Anna holds him, waits for the panic to pass. She knows not to ask. Everyone who survived the war carries ghosts. In 1955, the German government classifies Ernst as partially disabled. The lung damage, the scar tissue. He cannot run without losing breath, cannot lift heavy weights without pain. A small pension helps. Not much, but enough. Ernst never talks about the war. Not to Anna, not to Thomas, not to anyone. He builds a wall around those years, locks them away, tries to forget. But the body remembers what the mind tries to bury. Summer, 1965. Ernst takes his family to the public pool. Thomas is 12 years old now, curious, observant. He sees his father's scars when Ernst removes his shirt, the thin white lines across his back, the circular mark on his chest. "Papa, where did those come from?" Ernst freezes. He has avoided this question for 12 years. He could lie, say it was an accident, a work injury. But Thomas deserves some version of the truth. "I was a soldier in the war. I was captured. These are from that time." Thomas stares at the circular scar on his father's chest. "Did the Americans hurt you?" Ernst sits down, chooses his words carefully. "No. An American doctor saved me. I was injured, badly. He performed a procedure that kept me alive. This scar is from that, from him saving my life." Thomas processes this. "So you do not hate Americans?" Ernst shakes his head. "I hate war. I do not hate people who showed me mercy when they did not have to." That night, Anna asks if he wants to tell her the full story. Ernst considers, then shakes his head. "Maybe someday. Not yet." They never have that conversation. The years pass. Thomas grows up, marries, has children of his own, 4 grandchildren. Ernst becomes Opa, gentle, patient, occasionally distant. The nightmares never stop. The panic attacks never fully go away. But he learns to live with them. 1982. Ernst retires at 56. The lung damage makes continued physical labor impossible. He spends his days in the small garden behind their apartment, growing vegetables, watching his grandchildren play, living a quiet life. He thinks about Captain Brennan often, wonders if he is still alive, wonders if he remembers the German boy with the punctured lung. Ernst never tries to find him, never writes a letter. Some connections exist outside of time and space. Some debts can never be repaid, only honored through how you live. November 1992. Ernst wakes with chest pain, sharp, familiar, the old injury, the scar tissue, decades of damage finally taking its toll. Anna calls for an ambulance. Ernst is admitted to Hamburg University Hospital. The doctors run tests, X-rays, blood work. The diagnosis is not surprising. Chronic respiratory failure. The lung that collapsed in 1944 has been slowly degrading for 48 years. Now it can barely function. The doctors give him days, maybe a week. Anna calls Thomas. Thomas calls his sisters. The family gathers. 4 generations in a hospital room. Ernst lies in the bed. Oxygen tube in his nose, monitors beeping, waiting. On the 3rd day, Ernst asks to speak with Thomas alone. I need to tell you something about the scars, about what really happened. Before I cannot. Thomas sits, takes his father's hand. You do not have to, Papa. Yes, I do. You need to know. Ernst tells the story, the real story. Epinal, the beatings, the rib breaking, the lung puncturing, arriving at Camp Weingarten, dying. Captain Thomas Brennan, the thoracentesis, the bacon breakfast that made him cry, the refeeding protocol, the infection, France's unexpected help, the penicillin that saved him again. He did not have to save me. The system did not require it. He chose to. He fought for me. Twice. He risked his career to get me the medicine I needed, and because of him, I lived. I found your grandmother and your aunt. I met your mother. I had you. I had all of this. Thomas is crying now. Why did you never tell us? Because speaking it made it too real, made the fear come back. But you need to know. Every moment I had with you, every birthday, every Christmas, every time I held you as a baby, all of it existed because one American doctor refused to let me disappear. Ernst's breathing becomes labored. He grips Thomas's hand. Find him, if he is alive. Tell him I lived. Tell him I built a family. Tell him every breath I took was because of him. Tell him I never forgot. Promise me. I promise, Papa. Ernst smiles, closes his eyes. He dies on December 18th, 1992, age 66, surrounded by the family that exists because Captain Thomas Brennan chose mercy over bureaucracy 48 years earlier. The obituary in the Hamburg newspaper is 3 sentences long. It does not mention the war, does not mention the camp, does not mention the punctured lung, or the American doctor, or the moment when survival became possible. It says he was a laborer, a husband, a father, a survivor. But Thomas remembers the promise. In 1993, Thomas begins searching. He writes to the United States Army Medical Corps, to veteran organizations, to Camp Weingarten historical societies. The responses are slow, incomplete. Many records were destroyed. Many camps closed without proper documentation. In 1995, Thomas contacts the Missouri Historical Society. They have some records, donations from former camp personnel. He requests his father's medical file. 6 months later, an envelope arrives. Inside are photocopies, medical records, treatment logs, and notes. Captain Brennan's notes. Patient Ernst Müller, age 18, arrived with hemopneumothorax and severe malnutrition, performed thoracentesis. Patient responded well to treatment, remarkable resilience, discharged to general population after 4 weeks. And at the bottom, a handwritten note. This boy represents why we do this work, why mercy matters even in war, why the Geneva Convention is not just paper, but a promise. If he survives this war, he will have earned it. Thomas cries, reading his father's medical records, seeing proof that the story was real, that Captain Brennan existed, that the mercy was documented. He searches for Brennan's current address, finds a record. Captain Thomas Brennan, retired, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but the date next to it stops his heart. Died May 7th, 1989, age 81, 3 years before Ernst died, 3 years before Thomas could deliver the message. Thomas sits with the knowledge. His father died without knowing if Brennan remembered him. Brennan died without knowing if Ernst survived the decades after the war. 2 men connected by a moment of mercy, separated by an ocean and time, never reunited. But Thomas is not done. He finds Brennan's obituary, survived by daughter Sarah Brennan, Philadelphia. Thomas writes a letter, tells Sarah the story. Everything, from the punctured lung to the bacon breakfast to the deathbed promise. 3 weeks later, Sarah responds. The letter is long, emotional. She writes about her father, about how he rarely spoke about the war, but late in life, very late. He mentioned one patient, a German boy who should not have survived, who had a punctured lung and no will to live, until he learned that mercy was real. My father said that boy reminded him why he became a doctor, not to serve a country, but to serve humanity. He said saving that one life validated everything he believed about what medicine should be. Sarah writes that her father kept a journal, that the entry about Ernst was one of the few he reread, that he wondered, over the years, if the boy made it home, if he found his family, if he lived a good life. Please know that your father's survival meant something to my father. It gave him hope that one person can make a difference, that choosing humanity over hate matters, that mercy is not weakness. Thomas frames the letter, hangs it in his study, next to his father's medical records, proof that the story was real, that the connection existed, that mercy echoed across decades. Years pass. Thomas tells the story to his own children, to Ernst's grandchildren. The family history includes the punctured lung, the American doctor, the bacon breakfast, the Geneva Convention. All of it becomes part of the family narrative. In 2015, Ernst's medical records are declassified, donated to the Hamburg War Memorial Museum. They become part of an exhibit. Prisoners of war in American custody, stories of unexpected humanity. Visitors read about Ernst Müller, about Captain Brennan, about one moment of mercy during a war that killed millions. Summer, 2024. Stefan, Ernst's grandson, age 47, plans a trip to America with his son Jakob, 12 years old. Stefan contacts Sarah Brennan, now 78, living in Pennsylvania, asks if she would meet them in Missouri. At the site where Camp Weingarten once stood, she agrees. They meet on a warm July morning. The camp is gone, ploughed under decades ago. Now it is farmland, corn growing where barracks once stood. But there is a historical marker, small, bronze, placed by the Missouri Historical Society. Site of Camp Weingarten, 1943 to 1946. Over 2,000 German prisoners of war housed here, managed according to Geneva Convention standards, mortality rate less than 1%. Stefan and Jakob stand next to Sarah. 3 generations, 2 families, connected by one moment in 1944. Sarah brings her father's journal. The leather is worn, the pages yellowed. She opens it to December 1944. Saved a German boy today, 18 years old, punctured lung, severe malnutrition. He looked at me like I was going to kill him. I handed him bacon for breakfast. He cried, not from pain, from relief. That is what this war has done, made kindness unrecognizable, made mercy look like a trick. But it is not a trick, it is a choice. And today, I chose to save a life instead of following policy. I would make that choice again, every time. Stefan reads the entry. His eyes blur. His grandfather's story, preserved in the handwriting of the man who saved him. He turns to Jakob. Your great-grandfather survived because an American doctor refused to let him disappear. Because Captain Brennan believed the Geneva Convention was not just paper, it was a promise. A promise that even in war humans deserve dignity. And that promise saved not just one life, it saved all the lives that came after. Your grandmother, your father, you. Jakob places flowers at the historical marker. Why is this important, Papa? Stefan looks across the field, at the corn growing where his grandfather once learned to breathe again. Because mercy transcends hate. Because one person's choice can echo across generations. Because we are standing here alive, because two men chose humanity over ideology. Sarah steps forward, extends her hand to Stefan. Thank you for finding me, for telling me that your grandfather lived. My father wondered, for 45 years, whether the boy made it home, whether the mercy mattered. Now I know, it did. It created this. She gestures to Stefan, to Jakob, to the family that exists because her father performed a thoracentesis on a dying prisoner in 1944. This is what one choice creates, not just one saved life, generations. They stand together in the Missouri field, two families, connected by mercy. By the decision to follow rules when breaking them would have been easier. By the belief that humanity matters even when the world says it does not. The wind blows through the corn. Somewhere beneath this field, the ghosts of barracks, of hospital beds, of moments when survival hung on one person choosing to care. Ernst Müller's story is one among thousands. German prisoners held in American camps. Most went home, most lived. Because America chose to follow the Geneva Convention, even when enemies did not, even when it cost resources, even when it would have been easier to look away. That choice defined what it meant to be American. Not power, not wealth, the choice to be better, to treat even enemies as human. To recognize that mercy is not weakness, it is strength. And that strength echoes through decades, through generations, until families meet in a Missouri field and discover that one moment of kindness in 1944 still matters in 2024. Ernst Müller died believing Captain Brennan might not remember him, that he was just one patient among hundreds. He was wrong. Thomas Brennan wrote about Ernst until the day he died, wondering if the boy survived, if the mercy mattered. It did. Every breath Ernst took, every moment with his family, every grandchild, every story told, all of it existed because one doctor chose to save a life when policy said adequate was enough. And now, 80 years later, two families stand together, proof that mercy matters, that humanity transcends hate. That one person's choice can ripple forward through time in ways no one can predict. This is the story of the boy who breathed twice, once when he was born, once when an American doctor refused to let him die, and that second breath created everything that came after.